Self-directed IRA options on this Freedom Fest edition of Unlock Your Wealth Today. Your life fully invested.
Welcome to Unlock Your Wealth TV. I'm your purveyor of prosperity and host, Heather Wagenhals, and we are broadcasting from a Freedom Fest in Rapid City, South Dakota. So you've heard about doing some creative things in your IRA, and you're wondering, what options do I have really as a self-directed IRA? I've heard about them, I've thought about them. Well, I've got someone to help talk about them. And he's also a podcaster too. So Kurt, welcome to Unlock Your Wealth TV.
Thanks for having me on, Heather.
So you are an asset manager and you focus on retirement stuff and things that you can do. Why would we even want to worry about a self-directed IRA instead of just put it in there and set it and forget it?
It's a great question. I think everybody has a different mode of investing, and that's something that works well for them. We like the self-directed IRA concept because it really allows you to invest in what you know. And most people think that they're limited to stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. And that about, I'd say 10% of the public is even aware that you can invest outside of the stock market. But if you think about it, there are so many people out there that invest in cool and interesting things, like real estate, or horses, or physical gold, or tax liens. All of these different assets, I've met so many cool people that make really, really good returns on assets that they know well and that they're an expert in. So if you're an expert in real estate, why would you invest in tech stocks when you know something so well?
Right.
So that's why we like to focus on that, because we've seen some tremendous investments out there where people are getting returns you probably wouldn't believe, but it's something that they do on a daily basis. And if you talk to a real estate investor, you probably know that every single real estate investor I've ever met looks the same. That every nickel they've ever owned goes back into real estate. They won't invest in anything but real estate. That's just how they're built. And why would you have them invest in a tech startup or a mutual fund? Because most of them, I've met a lot of people who won't even invest in their 401k because it's not in real estate. That's how one-minded they are, which is great if they know it and they're good at it. So, you know, we like to support people in their investing style and in helping them invest better.
So when I think about real estate, since you brought up the real estate thing, and I'm also a real estate broker, full disclosure, and we do creative investing. So when we talk about putting real estate in a self-directed IRA, well, what if I wanted to invest in rental real estate? Then what happens?
That's perfectly allowed. So you can invest in virtually anything in your retirement account. The only things you cannot invest in are collectibles, life insurance on yourself, or S-corps. But virtually anything else you can invest in.
So my Beanie Babies are out?
They're out, I'm sorry to say. Yes, your wine collection is out too.
Yes! Yeah. So the world is our oyster, right? Like,
yep.
Okay. So when we talk about, and with your example of real estate, we talk about investing in it. So what happens with the profits, say from rent? You know, because you've got expenses, right? So then what do we do with the profit from that?
It's a great question. So the asset is actually owned by the retirement account. So it is titled in the name of the retirement account. It's not titled in your name. Okay. So all of the expenses for the real estate have to come from your retirement account. All the income from the property goes into the retirement account. So your retirement account is basically, for all intents and purposes, the checking account for your investment property. And I think this is one thing that causes people some issue because it creates a prohibited transaction if you take that cash and put it in your pocket. Okay. So you have to treat the IRA like, think of it this way, the neighbor on your street you really don't like, right? You're not going to loan them money, you're not going to let them borrow your lawnmower, you know, you're not going to go fix their roof for free. That's how you have to treat your IRA. The redheaded stepchild on the street, right? You can't do anything with your IRA. It has to be arm's length.
I was a redheaded stepchild. I know what kind of problem that is. You're like, do I go there? She's ginger. What do I do?
A little spicy.
Right. Absolutely. No, I love it. So that's gonna, so that requires some discipline on our behalf. So when we think about, IRA contributions aren't that much. If I want to be in real estate, is my IRA borrowing the money for like a house? What if I don't have 100 or 200 or 500 or whatever it costs for this particular asset?
It goes down a little bit of a rabbit hole. So the best way is to invest all cash, because then you don't have any issues. You just buy the real estate for cash. Now, some parts of the country, real estate's really expensive. I happen to live in one of those parts, unfortunately. So you can get a mortgage off of it, but it does create other issues. So the way that you look at real estate if you have a mortgage is the equity portion of the property is tax deferred or tax free, depending on the type of IRA you have.
Right.
But the mortgage part, the leverage part, is taxable. So if you have a property you're buying for $100,000, you put down $50,000 for equity, and you take a mortgage for $50,000, then half of your income or your gains is taxable, because it's technically outside of the retirement account. But it still qualifies for all the deductions, the depreciation, all the benefits you get with real estate, so there are some benefits to that. You have to do the math to see if it makes sense to take leverage or not, but it is something that can be done. You just have to be careful of the potential taxes around it.
So a lot of people do different ways of valuing real estate, since we're in the real estate conversation. And I kind of prefer like cash on cash when I'm trying to look at an analysis. Everybody likes to use all these other crazy ones, and I don't even want to bring them up because I don't think it's a good performance indicator of what your money is doing.
Right.
Irrespective of the leverage.
Right.
So is that the same way, or how do you recommend people evaluate real estate assets, for example?
I think there's many ways. It depends on what your goal is. So I think a lot of people, especially now, a lot of people are buying real estate for appreciation. I don't think that's a good approach. We always buy for cash flow, because you don't know the future. I know a lot of people think they do, but we can't tell the future. So just so you know. So we don't know what the appreciation is going to be next year or the year after. But you can predict the cash flow with reasonable certainty. Obviously you might have a bad renter, but you know what the cash flow is going to be, right? So you can predict that. So we base things on cash flow. When we're working with clients, a lot of clients bring real estate to us and we'll analyze it for them and see if it's a good deal or not, depending on the location. We haven't done a lot of real estate recently because real estate's really expensive in most parts of the country, especially in our part. We do a lot of private mortgages. So you're getting the benefits of real estate, the cash flow from real estate, without some of the challenges of owning real estate, being a landlord. So right now we're doing more of that because we still get good cash flow without the challenges. And if the real estate market does turn with the rest of the economy, which at some point will happen, then we don't have to be stuck with a illiquid asset, because the private mortgage will get paid off, and then we can go in and buy real estate cheaper.
So you brought up something interesting. So can you lend from your IRA? So, I like asset-backed securities. Real estate is kind of, I was a stockbroker. I've kind of made my way around financial services and done it all. Yep. But I like physical assets, because no matter what, people need a place to live. They may not need a building to run a business from, especially now that we're in this really interesting, virtual economy.
Yeah.
But we always need a roof over our head. But if I don't want to get caught up in the asset itself, can I lend for somebody else? Can I use that as a funding source to be a lender?
Paper investments are great. I love paper investments because you can get really creative with them. So yes, we do a lot of private mortgages. I like them. Obviously, they have to be backed by an asset. You can't take a personal guarantee. So these have to be, just for reference, they have to be non-recourse loans. Right. So if you have a property that you're borrowing on, they have to be a non-recourse loan.
What if you're lending on?
If you're lending, you do whatever you want.
Okay.
Now, I wouldn't recommend you lend with no collateral.
Right.
But people can do it. I wouldn't recommend it.
Well, I'm the asset-backed lending.
And you can't lend to somebody who's a disqualified person. So those would be your spouse, your kids, your grandkids, your parents, your grandparents. Brother and sister's okay. Anybody you don't know, friends are okay. cousins, uncles are fine, but you can't do a disqualified person, or else that would create a prohibited transaction.
Well, this sounds really exciting for folks. If they want to find out more, how do they get a hold of you to kind of explore different ways to make their IRAs perform better?
Yeah, I mean, if people want to find us, they can find us at innovativewealth.com. We have a huge amount of resources on our website for people who want to do it yourself. That's where we created them, so people can learn more. If people really need more of a hand-holding, then they can call us and we can help walk them through it.
Excellent. And you have a podcast, so if folks want to listen to you and kind of get a vibe for how you handle investments, where do they go?
Yep, my podcast is moneytreeinvestingpodcast.com. You can find me there. We do a show every week. We talk about all sorts of things, personal finance, investing. We do a lot with alternative assets, different strategies. We really like teaching people how to think differently.
Right.
Like Wall Street has a lot of what I call half-truths. And they're things that you think they're true, but they're only partially true because they're giving you part of the answer. And if you actually understood the full picture, you'd realize that most of what they're telling you is a lie. It just sounds really true, and it's dangerous because you follow along with it until you realize, like, buy and hold, or I call it buy and hope.
Hope is not a strategy.
Yes, exactly. Hope is not a strategy. So if most people use that and they think, oh, this is the best, we just buy and hold, and even though the market goes down, we'll just hold. Well, what if you don't have to lose 50% of your stuff when the market goes down?
Right.
What about that?
How
right?
about that?
But nobody talks about that. They just think, oh, we can't you can't time the market, which I would argue you can time the market, you just can't predict the future.
Right.
Two very different
Bigger
things.
Challenge.
Right. So the things like that people talk about and they don't really understand fully what it means is that, yeah, buy and hold, but if you're 70 years old, how long are you holding for? Mm-hmm. Japan, their stock market at the peak of 1990 until today, it went down for 22 years in a row. It has still not reached the peak of where it was 30 some odd years ago. So how'd buy and hold work for you? Right? If you're 70 years old, you're not getting that money back.
Yes.
Even if you're 50 years old, you're never going to see it. So if you think about the time value of money, if you think about the value of cash, there's a lot of things that people should understand, but we help really kind of talk to people about how they should look at investing differently and not just take the status quo, what's being regurgitated in a lot of places, but actually think about things and understand that there's a lot of math behind it and there's a lot of logic behind how to think about it differently, and just because Wall Street says it doesn't mean it's true.
Well, that sounds fascinating, so I look forward to catching some episodes. And for those of you without a pencil, never fear, unlockyourwealthtoday.com is here, where you can visit Kirk's show page, get all of the links to his great resources and podcast, and so much more. Thanks so much for stopping by our Freedom Fest edition of Unlock Your Wealth TV. I'm Heather Wagenhals. Now go out and unlock your wealth today.
UnlockYourWealthToday.com is produced by Heather Wagenhals and the Unlock Your Wealth Foundation. Unlock Your Wealth Today and affiliate brands are copyrighted 2021 by Heather Wagenhals, all rights reserved. For more information about the Keys to Riches financial philosophy or this week's free strategy, please visit UnlockYourWealthToday.com.